Today, we're going to pop the hood on one of the most incredible machines in the universe, the human heart. Seriously, forget any engine you've ever seen. This is a biological powerhouse that runs non-stop for decades. So to kick things off, let's just look at the raw performance specs.
To really wrap your head around this thing, you've just got to start with the numbers. And trust me, they are absolutely staggering. They give you a sense of the sheer scale of work this little organ is doing every single second of your life.
Get this. Over an average 80-year lifespan, your heart will beat about 30 billion times. Just let that number sink in for a second. That's a marathon runner that doesn't just never quit, it never even takes a water break.
So what's all that beating actually doing? Well, it's pumping a whole lot of blood. Every single day, your heart moves around 7,500 liters of it through your body. To put that in perspective, your heart could fill a small tanker truck in just about a week. It's just wild. And where's all that blood going? It's traveling through this massive network of blood vessels. And when I say massive, I mean it. If you could take all of them and line them up end to end, that line would stretch around the entire Earth, twice. That's a delivery network that's literally out of this world. And here's the kicker, the part that just blows my mind. All of that work, the billions of beats, the thousands of liters, the miles and miles of pipeline, it all comes from an engine that's only about the size of your own fist. So how on earth is that even possible? Well, to figure that out, we've got to look at the blueprint.
With any high-performance machine, right, if you really want to know how it works, you have to look at its design. The heart is no different. It is an absolute masterclass in efficient, super resilient engineering.
First up, you've got the housing. The heart is wrapped in this tough, protective sac called the pericardium. It does two things. It anchors the heart right in the middle of your chest, and it keeps it from stretching out too much. But the coolest part, it's self-lubricating. There's this thin layer of fluid in there that cuts down on friction with every single beat.
Now, the wall of the heart itself is made of 3 different layers. Think of it like a high-tech sandwich. You've got smooth inner and outer linings, the endocardium and the epicardium. But the real meat in the middle, the powerhouse, is the myocardium. That is the thick, powerful cardiac muscle that does all the squeezing, all the heavy lifting. That's your engine block, right there.
And check this out. Here's another piece of really clever design. The heart has this fibrous skeleton made of tough tissue, and it does 2 critical jobs at once. First, it's the frame that holds the chambers and valves in place so they don't get all stretched out. And second, it acts as an electrical insulator. That might sound boring, but as we're about to see, it is absolutely essential for making the heartbeat work correctly.
Okay, now we get to what is, for my money, the most incredible part of this whole thing. Unlike any engine we've ever built, the heart powers itself. It has its own onboard computer, its own self-generating electrical system that runs the entire show without you ever having to think about it. You know, there's a saying in the world of heart surgery, surgeons are better plumbers than electricians. And it just perfectly sums this up. Fixing the physical pipes and valves, the plumbing, that's one thing. But understanding and fixing the heart's delicate internal wiring, well, that's a whole other ballgame. So what's the magic behind this self-powering system? It all comes down to these incredible cells called autorhythmic fibers. Just think of them as these special muscle fibers that have one job, to create their own electricity. They don't wait for a command, they just go. They generate their own spark completely on their own. And the command center for this whole electrical grid is a tiny little bundle of these cells called the SA node. This is the heart's natural pacemaker. If you just leave it to do its thing, it sets a steady default rhythm of about 100 beats a minute. Now your brain and your hormones can tell it to speed up or slow down, sure, but they don't create that initial spark. The heart does that all by itself. It's its own boss. So, we've got an electrical spark. That's cool. But how does that little zap actually translate into the powerful, physical pump that shoves blood through thousands of miles of vessels? Let's take a look at the engine in action.
You know that classic lubbed up sound of a heartbeat, right? Well, that's not the sound of the muscle squeezing. Nope, those are mechanical sounds. The lub is the sound of one set of valves slamming shut, and the dup is the sound of another set slamming shut a moment later. You're literally hearing the sounds of a perfectly timed 2-stroke pump.
In engineering, you always measure an engine by its output. For the heart, the big metric is called cardiac output. And the formula is actually pretty simple. You just take the amount of blood that gets pushed out with every single beat, that's called stroke volume, and you multiply it by how many times it beats per minute. your heart rate. That number tells you exactly how much work the heart is doing.
But what's really amazing is that this output is constantly changing based on what your body needs. When you're exercising, for instance, your body is screaming for more oxygen, so your cardiac output goes way up. But when you're asleep and demand is low, the engine just automatically throttles itself back. It's an unbelievably smart and responsive system.
So if this powerful engine is basically running on autopilot, how does the rest of the body keep tabs on it and make sure it's doing the right thing? Well, it turns out there's a pretty sophisticated dashboard of controls to monitor the whole system.
The most basic gauge on that dashboard is heart rate. And you've probably heard these terms before. Tachycardia is when the heart is idling too fast. We're talking over 100 beats per minute when you're just sitting there. Bradycardia is the opposite. It's idling too slow, below 60. You can think of them like warning lights, telling a doctor that maybe something is up with the engine's control system.
The two main external controls are your nervous system and your hormones. Your nervous system is basically the gas pedal and the brake, telling that SA node pacemaker to either speed up or slow down. And then you've got hormones, like adrenaline, which are like hitting a turbo boost button, giving the heart a sudden burst of speed and power when you're in a stressful situation.
And finally, there's blood pressure. The best way to think about this is as the system's overall operating pressure. It's the force that the blood is putting on the walls of all those vessels. You need enough pressure to get blood to every single cell in your body, but not so much pressure that you start damaging the pipes. It's a really delicate balancing act.
So after all that, we end up right back where we started. We have a pump the size of a fist that beats billions of times, powers itself, and fine-tunes its own performance for almost a century, all without a single conscious command. It's the ultimate example of reliable, automated engineering. It really makes you stop and wonder, what can this perfect little engine teach us about how we build resilient, long-lasting systems in our own world?